They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but what about the ones that cut you out? At 68, I stood on a Hawaiian beach, the sun burning my shoulders, watching my children and their spouses pose for photos, their laughter slicing through the ocean breeze. Not one of them turned to me, not one waved me into the frame. "You were in the background, Mom," my daughter Claire said later, her tone as dismissive as a shrug. Background? I'd paid for every grain of sand under their feet, every Mai Tai they sipped, every night in that oceanfront condo. Betrayed by my own blood, I stood there invisible, my heart splintering like driftwood under their careless steps. Would I let their disrespect bury me, or would I find a way to take back the frame that was mine? Subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let's dive into this story together. I was 68 when my world tilted. My name's Marjorie, and I've spent my life holding my family together, stitching the seams even when they frayed. 6 years ago, my husband Tom passed, leaving a hole I thought I could fill with love for my kids Daniel and Claire and their families. I'm not wealthy, but Tom left me a nest egg, carefully saved from years of his carpentry work and my bookkeeping side gigs. I used it to keep us close: annual vacations, Christmas dinners with all the trimmings, even college funds for my 3 grandkids. I didn't mind dipping into the savings. It felt like a gift to see them smile, to hear their laughter echo Tom's. This year it was Hawaii. I'd dreamed of those islands since Tom and I watched old Elvis movies, giggling over blue Hawaii. I thought this trip would be our masterpiece, a memory to bind us. Instead, it showed me how little I mattered. It started on the first day. We'd landed in Maui, the air thick with salt and hibiscus. I'd booked a sprawling condo, all glass and white wicker, with a balcony overlooking the Pacific. I'd spent $15,000 flights, rentals, snorkeling tours, a luau with fire dancers. I wanted it perfect. That morning we hit the beach, the sand so white it looked like powdered sugar. Daniel's wife Sarah pulled out her camera, her blonde ponytail swinging as she directed everyone. "Over here, guys. By the palm trees," she called. I stood nearby, adjusting my sun hat, waiting for her to say, "Marjorie, get in." She didn't. Daniel, Claire, Greg, Claire's husband, and the grandkids huddled together, grinning, while I lingered like a forgotten prop. The shutter clicked and they moved on, leaving me with the beach bags. I brushed it off. Maybe it was a candid shot, I told myself. Sarah's always been particular about her photos, likes them aesthetic, whatever that means. But the next day it happened again. We were at a lookout point, the ocean stretching endless and turquoise below. Greg set up his fancy tripod, and they posed again, kids in front, couples behind, all teeth and sunglasses. I stepped closer, thinking surely this time, but Claire waved me off. "We're doing family shots, Mom," she said, not even looking at me. Family? The word stung like salt in a cut. I was the one who'd made this moment possible, yet I was outside the circle. That night Greg posted a montage on social media, 20 photos, all palm trees and smiles. I wasn't in a single one. By day 3, I felt like a ghost. I'd catch them whispering, their eyes flicking toward me before darting away. At breakfast, Sarah barely acknowledged my suggestion to visit a local market. "We're good, Marjorie," she said, scrolling her phone. Marjorie, not Mom. Daniel didn't notice. He was too busy joking with Greg about some football game. My grandkids, Lily, Max, and little Emma, ran around, their voices high and carefree, but even they didn't seek me out like they used to. I remembered when Lily would beg for my stories about Tom building her treehouse, or when Max would curl up next to me with his toy dinosaurs. Now they barely looked up from their tablets. The luau was the final blow. I'd looked forward to it for weeks, picturing us all together, lilies around our necks, the fire dancers spinning under the stars. I wore my favorite blue dress, the one Tom always said made my eyes shine. I felt good, hopeful even, as we arrived at the venue, tiki torches flickering against the night. Sarah announced a family portrait by the stage. I stepped forward, smoothing my dress, ready to join. But Daniel stopped me. "We're doing couples first, Mom," he said, his voice impatient. Couples turned into groups, then just the kids, then everyone but me. I stood there clutching my purse, the music pounding in my ears. Claire handed me her phone. "Can you take one of us, Mom? You're so good at this." Good at this. Like I was the hired photographer, not the woman who'd made it all happen. That night alone in my room, the hurt sank deeper. I couldn't sleep, the hum of the air conditioner mocking my racing thoughts. I grabbed my iPad, hoping to distract myself with a book. That's when I saw it, their group chat, left logged in on the family account. I shouldn't have looked, but curiosity, or maybe desperation, pulled me in. The messages were a gut punch. "Mom's hovering again," Sarah had written with a rolling eyes emoji. "She's so clingy," Greg replied. Daniel's message was the worst. "She'll pay for the next one too. Let her feel useful." I'd given them everything, my money, my time, my heart, and they were laughing behind my back, mocking my love like it was a transaction. I set the iPad down, my chest tight, tears burning but refusing to fall. I'd spent years swallowing their slights, excusing their distance, telling myself it was just how families are. But this wasn't family, this was betrayal, cold and calculated. They thought they could erase me, keep me in the background of their perfect little lives. They were wrong. I wasn't just the bankroll, the cook, the babysitter. I was Marjorie, and I was done being invisible. As the moon hung low outside my window, something shifted inside me. Heartbreak hardened into defiance. They wanted me out of the picture. Fine, I'd take myself out of theirs, starting with the vacation fund. I didn't know how yet, but the spark of an idea was there, sharp and alive. I'd show them what it felt like to be left behind. For the first time in years, I felt a flicker of power, like the woman I used to be before I let their needs define me. They'd learn soon enough, you don't disrespect the one holding the frame. The flight home from Hawaii was a 6-hour lesson in silence. I sat wedged between Daniel and Claire in economy, my choice to save money for their perfect vacation. Daniel scrolled through his phone, chuckling at memes while Claire flicked through photos, her thumb pausing on the ones I wasn't in. I stared at the seat back in front of me, the tray table scratches blurring as my mind replayed that group chat. She'll pay for the next one too. Let her feel useful. My hands clenched in my lap, nails digging into my palms. I wanted to shake them, to demand why they treated me like a walking ATM, but I didn't. I've never been one for shouting matches, not because I'm weak, but because I thought love meant absorbing the hurt, patching the cracks with a smile. That was my mistake, and it sat heavy in my chest, like a stone I'd carried too long. Back in my little house in Ohio, the quiet was deafening. The condo's tropical breeze was gone, replaced by the hum of my old refrigerator, and the creak of floorboards Tom and I had meant to fix. I set my suitcase by the door, too tired to unpack, and sank into the armchair where I used to read to my grandkids. The house felt emptier than it should have, not just because Tom was gone, but because I'd let my family hollow it out. I'd spent $15,000 on that trip. Flights, the condo, snorkeling gear, that overpriced luau. For years I'd poured money into their lives. $20,000 for Daniel's down payment on his house, $10,000 for Claire's kitchen remodel, countless smaller gifts, new bikes for the kids, restaurant tabs when they forgot their wallets. I didn't mind then. I saw it as love, as carrying Tom's dream of a close-knit family. But love wasn't what they gave back. They gave entitlement, and I'd been too blind to see it. I started noticing the slights I'd ignored. Sunday dinners at my house where I'd slave over pot roast only for Sarah to push it around her plate, muttering about her diet. Greg's eye rolls when I shared stories about Tom's carpentry days, like my memories were a boring rerun. Claire's sharp sighs when I asked for help with my phone, as if I were a child slowing her down. Daniel, my own son, hadn't thanked me for the trip, not once. He'd always been my rock, the boy who'd cling to me after nightmares. Now he barely looked at me unless he needed something. My grandkids Lily, Max and Emma used to be my shadows, begging for my oatmeal cookies or my lap for story time. Now they'd rather tap away at their screens, their small faces lit by pixels instead of my voice. The group chat haunted me. I shouldn't have checked it again, but I did. Late at night when the house was too still, I opened my iPad, the screen's glow harsh in the dark. There they were, their words like fresh cuts. Marjorie's so out of touch, Sarah had written after I'd suggested a board game night. She thinks we're still kids, Greg added with a laughing emoji. Claire's message stung worst. She's got the money, so why complain? Money, that's what I was to them, a resource, not a mother. I slammed the iPad shut, my breath ragged. Betrayal wasn't just the words, it was the ease of them, the way they typed their scorn without a second thought. I'd given them my heart, my savings, my time, and they'd turned me into a punchline. I could have confronted them. I pictured it, storming into Daniel's split level, tossing their messages in their faces, watching them squirm. I'd demand apologies, make them see the hurt they'd caused, but words wouldn't hit hard enough. They'd offer excuses, maybe a few tears, and expect me to forgive, to keep funding their lives like nothing happened. No, they needed to feel what I felt. Left out, dismissed, erased. I poured a glass of iced tea and sat at my kitchen table, the one Tom built, its edges worn smooth by years of family meals. My laptop glowed as I opened my banking app. The vacation fund, a separate account I'd built for our trips, sat at $50,000. Tom and I had saved it for memories, for laughter under new skies. They didn't deserve it, not anymore. An idea sparked, sharp and thrilling, like a match catching flame. I'd take it back, not just the money, but my place, my power, myself. I wouldn't scream or cry, I'd show them what it meant to be left out. I picked up my phone and called Linda, my travel agent, her voice warm even at 10 p.m. Marjorie, another family trip already? She asked, half laughing. No, I said, my voice steady, surprising even me. This one's for me. We talked for an hour, her excitement feeding mine. By midnight I had the outline of a plan, a 6-week solo trip to Europe, Italy, France, Spain, places Tom and I had pinned on a map we never got to visit. I'd leave in a month after Claire's birthday dinner, when they'd least expect it. I went to bed that night with a lightness I hadn't felt in years. The hurt was still there, a bruise under my ribs, but so was something new, defiance. They thought they could keep me in the background. I'd paint my own picture, one where I was the center, not the shadow. As I drifted off, I saw myself in Rome, sunlight on my face, no one to push me aside. They'd learn what it cost to forget me. Planning my escape felt like stealing my own life back. Every evening after the dishes were done and the house settled into its quiet rhythm, I'd sit at my kitchen table with my laptop, the glow casting shadows on Tom's old oak table. I researched cobblestone streets in Rome, vineyard tours in Tuscany, cafes in Paris where I could sip coffee and watch the world go by. My travel agent Linda became my co-conspirator, her voice crackling with excitement over the phone as we mapped out a 6-week solo adventure across Europe. "Marjorie, you're going to love this," she said, booking a cooking class in Barcelona and a boutique hotel in Florence with a view of the Arno. I didn't tell a soul, not Daniel, not Claire, not even my neighbor Susan who'd water my plants. My kids didn't notice my silence. They were too busy texting about Claire's upcoming birthday dinner, assuming I'd host, cook and pay as always. Let them think everything was normal. I was playing a longer game. The secrecy was thrilling, like I was a teenager sneaking out after curfew. I'd spent years being predictable. Marjorie, the mom who'd always show up, always forgive, always foot the bill. Now I was rewriting the script. I ordered travel guides from the bookstore, hiding them under my bed like contraband. I practiced phrases in Italian, buongiorno, grazie, whispering them to my reflection in the bathroom mirror. My eyes looked brighter, like the woman Tom fell in love with, the one who danced to Motown records in our tiny apartment. That woman had been buried under years of their expectations, but she was clawing her way out. Claire's birthday was the perfect cover. They expected me to throw the usual party: lasagna, garlic bread, a cake from that overpriced bakery she loved. I leaned into it, letting them believe I was still the same old mom. I called Claire to confirm the date, my voice light. "Of course, sweetheart. I'll handle everything," I said, and she didn't question it. Why would she? I'd always handled everything. Daniel texted about bringing wine. Sarah offered to help by showing up early, meaning she'd sit at my counter sipping coffee while I cooked. Greg didn't bother replying. He'd probably scroll his phone through dinner, same as always. I didn't care. This was my last performance before I took my bow. The day of the dinner, I woke early, the air crisp with autumn. I drove to the market, picking out ripe tomatoes and fresh basil, my hands moving through the familiar motions of a life I was about to leave behind. Back home I set the table with Tom's old china, the plates we'd used for every milestone, birthdays, graduations, the night Daniel got engaged. The clink of the plates felt like a countdown. I baked the lasagna, the kitchen filling with the scent of garlic and cheese, and picked up Claire's favorite chocolate cake, its frosting smooth as a promise. As I arranged the candles I felt a pang, love and hurt tangled together. I still loved them, my kids, my grandkids. But love didn't mean letting them walk over me. They arrived at 6, spilling into the house with laughter and chatter. Claire hugged me, her perfume sharp and expensive. "Smells amazing, Mom," she said, already heading for the wine. Daniel clapped me on the shoulder, a half-hearted gesture, while Sarah complimented the table but didn't offer to help. Greg barely looked up from his phone, muttering a hello. The grandkids ran to the living room, their voices bright but distant, already lost in their tablets. I smiled through it, my secret burning like a coal in my chest. After dinner I brought out the cake, 35 candles flickering for Claire. They sang, their voices off-key but warm, and for a moment I wanted to believe we could go back. But then I remembered the group chat, their words like thorns. "She's so clingy, let her feel useful." I handed Claire her gift, a photo album I'd spent nights assembling. It was a quiet act of defiance, every picture from our past vacations, carefully edited to crop me out. Just them, smiling under palm trees, by lakes and ski lodges, all the trips I'd paid for. "Thought you'd like this," I said, my voice sweet as the cake. They laughed, thinking it was a joke. Sarah flipped through it, giggling. "Mom, you're too much." Daniel winked, clueless. I smiled wider, my heart racing. They had no idea what was coming. That night after they left, I sat at my desk and opened my banking app. The vacation fund, $50,000, painstakingly saved, stared back at me. I transferred it to a new account, one they couldn't touch. I paid off my credit cards, bought travel insurance, and set aside a small emergency fund. The rest was for Europe, for me. I bought a new suitcase, red and sleek, not the battered one we'd used for family trips. It felt like a declaration, this was mine. The next morning, I packed it with care, light dresses, a good pair of walking shoes, a journal for the stories I'd write. I left a note on the kitchen counter, simple and sharp: "Gone to find my place in the picture, don't wait up." I drove to the airport, my hands steady on the wheel. The radio played an old Beatles song, and I hummed along, the road stretching open before me. At the terminal, I checked my bag, the red suitcase disappearing down the conveyor belt like a piece of my old self. As the plane took off, I looked out at the clouds, their edges gold in the morning light. Freedom tasted sharp, like the first bite of an apple. They'd realize soon enough what they'd lost, not just the money, but me. And I wasn't coming back the same. Europe was a revelation, like waking up in a world where I wasn't just someone's mother or bankroll. I landed in Rome at dusk, the city bathed in a warm golden light that made the cobblestones glow. My hotel, a small pension near the Pantheon, smelled of espresso and old books. I dropped my red suitcase and stood on the balcony, breathing in the hum of scooters and distant laughter. For the first time in years, I wasn't planning for anyone else. No dinners to cook, no schedules to juggle. Just me, Marjorie, a 68-year-old widow with a heart still learning to beat for herself. The days unfolded like pages in a book I'd forgotten I loved. In Rome I wandered the Colosseum, my fingers tracing the worn stone, imagining the crowds that cheered there centuries ago. I ate carbonara at a tiny trattoria, the waiter calling me signora, with a smile that felt like respect, not pity. In Tuscany I joined a vineyard tour, sipping Chianti with a group of strangers who didn't see me as mom or grandma, but as Marjorie, the woman who laughed at their jokes and shared stories of Tom's woodworking. One evening under a sky streaked with pink, a Dutch woman named Anke raised her glass to me. To new adventures, she said. I clinked my glass against hers, my chest tight with something like joy. Paris was next, and I fell in love with its rhythm, the clatter of metro trains, the scent of fresh baguettes, the way the Eiffel Tower sparkled at night. I sat at a cafe in Montmartre, sketching the view in a little notebook I'd bought at a market. My drawings were rough, but they were mine, proof I was here, not in anyone's background. I sent postcards to my grandkids Lily, Max and Emma, simple notes about the gelato in Rome, or the street musicians in Paris. Wish you could hear this, I wrote to Max, picturing his wide eyes. But to Daniel, Claire, Sarah and Greg, nothing. Let them wonder where I'd gone. Let them feel the empty space I'd filled for so long. Back home they were starting to notice. My phone buzzed with texts I ignored. Claire's first, "Mom, where are you? We're worried." Daniel's was sharper. "This isn't funny, call me." Sarah's cut deep. "You can't just disappear. What about the summer trip?" I read them once, then tucked my phone away. Worried? They weren't worried about me. They were worried about their plans, their free ride. I pictured them at Daniel's house, scrolling through my social media, where I'd posted a single photo, me in front of the Trevi fountain, my blue scarf fluttering, my smile wide and unapologetic. No caption, just the image. Let them stew. In Barcelona, I took a cooking class, learning to make paella with a woman named Elena, a grandmother like me, her hands quick and sure as she chopped peppers. Over steaming pans she told me her story, how she'd left a family that took her for granted, moved to the city, and started teaching. "You don't owe them your light," she said, stirring saffron into the rice. Her words hit like a truth I'd been circling. I'd spent years dimming myself to lift them up, thinking that's what mothers did. But I wasn't just a mother. I was a woman with dreams, with a right to be seen. I bought a camera in a shop near La Rambla, a good one, and started taking my own photos. Me in front of the Sagrada Familia, me laughing with Elena over sangria, me alone on a beach, the Mediterranean lapping at my toes. I posted them online, not for them, but for me, a gallery of a life I was claiming. A week into Spain, Daniel left a voicemail. His voice cracked, a mix of guilt and panic. "Mom, we didn't mean to hurt you. Come home, we need to talk." I listened, my thumb hovering over the delete button. Need wasn't enough. They needed my money, my reliability, but respect? That was a currency they hadn't earned. I deleted the message and walked to a plaza where a guitarist played flamenco, the notes sharp and alive. I sat on a bench, letting the music wash over me, and felt something settle, a certainty that I wasn't going back to being their shadow. 5 weeks in, I got an email from Claire, longer than her texts, almost desperate. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how we made you feel. Please, let's fix this." I read it twice, my heart softening for a moment. I loved them, even now, but love didn't mean surrender. I'd spent too long giving them pieces of myself, only to be cropped out of their lives. I wrote back, brief and firm, "I'm fine. I'll be home when I'm ready." Then I shut my laptop and joined Elena for a walk through Park Güell, its mosaic tiles glinting like possibilities. I wasn't running away. I was running towards something, a version of me I'd almost forgotten. As my trip neared its end, I felt different, stronger, like the Marjorie who'd once dreamed of painting, of traveling, of a life bigger than the one I'd settled for. The hurt was still there, a quiet ache, but it didn't define me anymore. I'd found my place in the picture, and it wasn't in their background. They'd have to face that soon, and I wasn't sure they were ready. I stepped off the plane in Ohio, my red suitcase trailing behind me like a loyal friend. 6 weeks in Europe had changed me. My skin was tanned from Mediterranean sun, my eyes brighter, my shoulders straighter. The airport's fluorescent lights felt harsh after Paris's soft glow, but I wasn't the same Marjorie who'd left. I'd walked Rome's ancient streets, laughed with strangers in Tuscany, and danced to a busker's guitar in Barcelona. I'd found pieces of myself I'd buried under years of giving too much. Now back in my world, I carried that strength like a shield. My family was waiting, and I was ready, not for forgiveness, but for truth. My house smelled of dust and memory when I unlocked the door. The note I'd left, gone to find my place in the picture, "Don't wait up," still sat on the kitchen counter, creased from someone's touch. I set my suitcase down and ran my fingers over Tom's old table, its wood warm under my palm. I'd half expected them to be here, camped out like a jury awaiting a verdict. Instead, the house was quiet, but my phone buzzed with missed calls. Daniel, Claire, even Sarah. I ignored them and made tea, the kettle's whistle grounding me. They'd come soon enough. They did that evening, pulling into my driveway like a storm rolling in. Daniel led the charge, Claire close behind, Sarah and Greg trailing with forced smiles. The grandkids weren't with them, probably at home with a sitter, spared the tension. I opened the door, my face calm, though my heart thudded. Claire rushed forward, hugging me tightly, her perfume sharp. "Mom, thank God you're back," she whispered, tears in her eyes. Daniel's jaw was tight, his arms crossed. "You scared us, Mom. Where the hell were you?" Sarah fidgeted, her usual confidence gone, while Greg stared at his shoes. I gestured to the living room. "Sit," I said, my voice steady, not inviting argument. They sat, awkward on my faded couch, like guests in a stranger's house. I stood, leaning against the wall, my new camera resting on the side table, a reminder of the life I'd claimed. "I saw the group chat," I said, cutting through their nervous chatter. Their faces froze, guilt flickering like a bad bulb. "I saw how you laughed at me, called me clingy, said I was useful because I paid for your lives." My voice didn't waver, though the words burned. "I gave you everything, my money, my time, my heart, and you pushed me out of the picture, literally." Claire's eyes welled up. "Mom, I didn't mean." I held up a hand, silencing her. "You did. All of you did. Every photo in Hawaii, every whisper, every time you treated me like a servant instead of your mother." Daniel shifted, his face red. "We didn't think it was a big deal," he said, voice low. "You always paid for stuff. We thought you wanted to." Wanted to. The words stung, but I didn't flinch. "I wanted to love you," I said, "not bankroll you. There's a difference." Sarah spoke up, her tone defensive. "We didn't ask you to pay for everything, Marjorie." Calling me Marjorie again, like a stranger. I smiled, sharp and cold. "You didn't have to ask. You expected it. And when I stopped fitting your perfect little frame, you erased me." Greg finally looked up, his voice soft. "We screwed up. I'm sorry." It was the first honest thing I'd heard from him in years, but apologies weren't enough. I walked to the kitchen, returning with a single photo I'd printed in Spain. Me in front of the Sagrada Familia, my blue dress catching the light, my smile wide and free. I set it on the coffee table. "This is what I found when I left," I said. "A life where I'm not invisible." I spent the vacation fund $50,000 on me. Europe, 6 weeks. Every penny was worth it. Daniel's eyes widened. "You spent it all?" he asked, disbelief edging his voice. I nodded. "It was mine to spend. Tom and I saved it for family, but you stopped being family when you mocked me." Claire sobbed, reaching for my hand. I let her take it, but I didn't squeeze back. "We're sorry, Mom," she said. "We didn't realize how it looked. Please let us fix this." Daniel nodded, his voice softer now. "We'll do better, I promise." Sarah wiped her eyes, and Greg added, "We didn't mean to hurt you." I looked at them, my kids, their spouses, the people I'd loved so fiercely. It had blinded me to their flaws. I wanted to believe them, but trust was a bridge they'd burned. "Words aren't enough," I said, my voice firm but not cruel. "You want me back, show me, respect me, not my wallet. If you want trips, pay for them. If you want family, act like it." I pointed to the photo. "I'm not in the background anymore. Remember that." The weeks that followed were slow, tentative. Claire started calling weekly, no agenda, just to talk about her job, Emma's dance recital, even my trip. Daniel showed up to mow my lawn, no complaints, and stayed to drink coffee and listen to my stories about Tom. Sarah invited me to dinner, not as a guest but as family, setting a place for me at the head of the table. The grandkids sent letters, real ones, scribbled in crayon about their days, their dreams. Lily drew a picture of us together, me front and center. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I kept my camera, my red suitcase, my independence. I framed that photo from Spain, and hung it in my living room, where it caught the morning light. It was a reminder. I'd found my place, and I'd never let them push me out again. They'd learned what it cost to forget me, not because I demanded it, but because I'd shown them I could walk away. And if they slipped again, I'd be ready, my suitcase packed, my heart my own.